Good morning, everyone. Oscar nominations literally comes out in like less than 36 hours from now. And yesterday, I went through and looked through all the categories to kind of finalize my predictions. It's a busy week, let me tell you. I'm off to Sundance tomorrow. I haven't even packed. So I hope you're okay with kind of a bare bones, very quick and dirty video where I just rip through my final Oscar predictions. And again, I'm gonna fly through this and just try to give you the meat and potatoes if I can. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Let's not waste any of your time. Before we get into this, I recently posted a video that explained the nomination process for Best Picture. I just wanted to say thank you so much for everyone who watched that video, who gave really positive feedback. I made a small little mistake in the video and I've been like beating myself up over it, but the fact that a lot of you appreciated it really helped me out a lot. And I also want to thank everyone who voted in that experiment. Now, I didn't have time this year to do my Best Picture nomination experiment because it does rely on BAFTA nominations, which we didn't have this year. However, I'm not going to overthink this. I think the locks are One Battle After Another. I think Sinners, Hamnet, Marty Supreme, Sentimental Value, Frankenstein. Those are lock. Then we go to Begonia. That really hasn't missed a beat all season. I think Train Dreams getting in PGA, it feels like a very big deal. If it didn't make it, then I would start to question it. But the fact that I got in, I think I don't really have a question on that. I think Train Dreams is in. And then we come to our last few spots, and I have to say, I do feel very good about Secret Agent. It's surging right now. It's coming off a lot stronger than I'm Still Here last year. Then that Globes win over Sentimental Value is very big. So yeah, I think it's safe. And lastly, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna go with It Was Just an Accident. It's definitely vulnerable. However, PGA went for F1 and Weapons, and PGA rarely goes 10 for 10. Usually it goes more for like 8 for 10. And the difference is usually PGA goes for the films that make money. So it going for Weapons and going for F1 there over It Was Just an Accident, it's not incredibly surprising to me. It's kind of expected. I don't think I'm really even considering Weapons, to be completely honest. I know the Academy does often surprise, but the surprise often comes in the form of an international film, not so much your blockbuster. Like, that's not usually what happens on Oscar nomination morning, is that a blockbuster sneaks into the category. I think Weapons was purely a PGA thing based on the fact that they didn't want to go for a lot of international films. And as I mentioned before, I did walk through that voting process for Best Picture, and thinking about how those ballots are counted, I do think It Was Just an Accident barely holds on there because it is the Palme d'Or winner, and with an international kind of draw within the Academy, I do believe enough passion is left to appear higher than, say, your F1 and your Blue Moon. If I had to pick 11, I would say it's definitely F1. Definitely F1. I think there might be some older members of the Academy who really just like the old school entertainment movies. And also there's that editing nomination it's likely to get. So you do have to consider F1 as a real possibility. But for now, I'm sticking with It Was Just an Accident. Let's move on to Best Actress. And I'm going to go ahead and refer to a lot of these acting categories as having the Big Four. And by the Big Four, I'm referring to the Golden Globes, the SAG, the Critics' Choice, and the BAFTA long list, since we do not have BAFTA nominations this year. And actresses that have all of them this year, we have Jessie Buckley, Rose Byrne, Emma Stone, and Chase Infinity. So when you see a massive snub, meaning an actress that has all four, it's typically from a big blockbuster. None of these performances here are really fitting into that kind of Margot Robbie from Barbie or the Viola Davis from Women King. I'm not really getting that from these nominees. Byrne isn't in a Best Picture nominee, nor would I say her film is really like Oscar friendly necessarily, but she won the Globe. Her missing the Oscar nomination, but then having Stone and Infinity make it in, who were in the same category in which Rose Byrne beat them. I can't really recall a time that's happened since Renee Zellweger in Chicago. So I think Byrne is very much in. I have no reason to really doubt these four. The fifth option, I think, is very clearly Renate Reinsve. She missed SAG, but that's really something you can kind of see a mile away with that group. She has the Golden Globe, she has Critics' Choice, she has BAFTA long list. So yeah, I feel pretty good about Renate Reinsve. I do see Amanda Seyfried get thrown around. Maybe she's the Kristen Stewart, misses SAG, but has the Critics' Choice and Globes. My only issue is Kristen Stewart made the BAFTA long list. Seyfried is missing here, so I don't think it's her at all. Kate Hudson would definitely be more of the surprise. She nearly has everything the other 4 contenders really have, but she's missing the Critics' Choice and a lineup of 6. If Hudson made it, unfortunately, I think it would be at Infinity's expense, since she is new to the Academy. And you do imagine that members vote for their friends, but one battle after another is just this year's juggernaut, and Sung Sung Blue is, well, you know, it's Sung Sung Blue. So I have to go with what I think the taste of the Academy is now. So I'm sticking with this 5: Jessie Buckley, Rose Byrne, Emma Stone, Renate Reinsve, Chase Infinity. All right, Best Actor. I'm trying to fit 6 contenders into 5 slots. And this year we don't have BAFTA, right? We just have the BAFTA long list. So all actors who have noms in the big ones and who made the BAFTA long list, that would be Leonardo DiCaprio, Timothée Chalamet, Ethan Hawke, and Michael B. Jordan. So Wagner Moura missed SAG and BAFTA long lists, and so did Fernando Torres. But I'm not really concerned, really. The last time a performance who won the Drama Globe but missed the Oscar, that was Jim Carrey, my boy, in The Truman Show. So based on current Academy taste, I think he's pretty safely in. Personally, I've always felt a little shaky on Michael B. Jordan. I know Sinners is perceived as a genre film, and it's where you often find those big, like, notable snubs. And the actor I'm kind of thinking will sneak in is Jesse Plemons, who also has Golden Globe, SAG, and that BAFTA long list. So yeah, I don't know. The tricky part is, if you put in Plemons, you have to properly guess which actor to take out. And for me, I'm feeling like it's Michael B. Jordan, but Michael B. Jordan really hasn't missed a beat the entire season. Sinners is incredibly popular. I think Hawke, though his film won't be in a Best Picture nominee, I think he's respected enough to get in. Wagner Moura missing SAG is not a shock, but him making Critics' Choice over Jesse Plemons, that kind of is. So watch out for Plemons, but I guess I'm going to stick with this 5, and I got Jordan in 5th. All right, let's move over to Best Supporting Actress, and let's start with the actors who have all 4, and that's just 3 of them: Tiana Taylor, Amy Madigan, and Ariana Grande. Since 2015, there's only been one time an actress got all 4, Critics' Choice, SAG, BAFTA, Globes in this category, and missed the Oscar nomination, and that was Katrina Balfe from Belfast. But we have to remember that these actresses have not secured that BAFTA nomination quite yet. So let's talk about the other contenders, and we'll wrap back around to this. So the Sentimental Value girls, I think Inga is doing much better than Elle Fanning, with Elle Fanning missing SAG and even BAFTA long list. Inga Ibsdottir, on the other hand, has kind of pretty much gotten everything except SAG, which again doesn't surprise me. Then you have Wunmi Mosaku, who is really only missing the Golden Globe nomination, and Globes snubbing Mosaku kind of doesn't surprise me either. And another actress, which I'm proud to say I predicted at SAG, was Odessa Zion, and the reason why is she's following the same path that Monica Barbero did. She missed pretty much everything, but she's surprised at SAG, and yet for another late-breaking Christmas Chalamet release movie. I mean, if you just look back at nearly all the Best Actor winners of late, you'll see that when another performance is on the table that can be nominated, they usually come along for the ride. So if you have Chalamet in, if you believe Chalamet is definitely winning, I think you gotta have Odessa Zion in there. I feel pretty good about her. Unfortunately, that's 6 actresses and I only have 5 slots, which means one has to go, but who? Taylor and Madigan are in. I feel good about a Zion. Ibsdottir, I think based on current trends, I think she's in. So I'm really deciding between Grande and Mosaku. And the only thing Grande has over Mosaku is that Golden Globe nomination. However, that was over a month ago, and since then, Mosaku really hasn't missed and has won more critics' prizes over Grande. And day by day, I think we've seen Wicked slip more and more. It started with Globe's Best Comedy snub, and then it became the SAG Ensemble and a Revo missing there, and then it became PGA. It's just been missing and missing and missing. So just reading that along with Sinners being a much stronger film, I do think there will be more passion for Masaku down the ballot as opposed to Grande, whose film just really isn't coming off as strong. So yeah, I'm going to stick with those 5 here. No Grande. All right, moving on to Best Supporting Actor. Sean Penn, Benicio del Toro, Jacob Elordi, and Paul Mescal. And then you have Stellan Skarsgård, which just won the Globe. I think this is the easiest category to call. Sandler missing SAG kind of just made it all the much easier. I think if you go with anything else, I think you're a madman. So yeah, other than a random Delroy Lindo, I really don't think there's much discussion to be had here. I think this is your 5. So let's move over to Best Director. Now this, unlike Best Supporting Actor, I think this is a very difficult category. DGA usually aligns with your director branch, typically 4 out of 5. But it hardly ever lines up 5 out of 5. So what happens is DGA typically leans more American, and the director branch of the Academy definitely leans to having an international director in there or that Palme d'Or director. All right, so here are what the DGA has nominated that the Oscars has snubbed. You got your Conclave, you got your Barbie, you got your Top Gun Maverick, you got your Trial Chicago 7, you got your Dune, and your Jojo Rabbit. So that really tells me that often your large spectacles are the ones that get overlooked here, and that just fits Del Toro more than Safdie. So let's consider Josh Safdie for now. So let's go ahead and look at what the Oscars has surprised us with that DGA didn't go for, and that's The Substance. That's Anatomy of a Fall. That's Triangle of Sadness. That's Drive My Car. That's Another Round. They love their international directors. And for me, I have really no doubt in my mind, I think that the most likely international director to be nominated is Joachim Trier. I think the film is personal, it premiered at Cannes, the story surrounds a director, I think it's going to be very well respected. It's the only film that also got a PGA nomination, only international film, so I think that's in. An interesting stat though, that I've mentioned a few times on this channel is that correlation between films that premiered at Cannes and gets nominated at Best Picture often gets nominated in the director category. It's on like a 20-something streak right now, and it hasn't broke since 2002. And this year we have a very unique situation where we have multiple Cannes premiered films that might end up in the Best Picture lineup, right? We have It Was Just an Accident, we have Secret Agent, so we do have to really consider Jafar Panahi and A Clever Mendoza Filho, both premiered at Cannes, both looking pretty promising for Best Picture, but both did not make the BAFTA long list. And that's where the interesting, tricky part comes. So I'm really kind of at a crossroads. Like, is it reasonable for me to say that this year will not only break that stat, but break it by 2 films? To me, that feels a little weird. So this is where I currently settled. Panahi has always had an incredible narrative, but when matched up against The Secret Agent in recent award shows, The Secret Agent usually comes out on top, despite Panahi winning the Palme d'Or. So I was very tempted to take out Josh Safdie because I'm not convinced that the branch will consider him officially part of the club quite yet. However, I ultimately looked pretty closely at the international directors from the past 8 years. Trier, Glazer, Hamaguchi, Vinterberg, Pawlikowski, all of them not only made the shortlist at BAFTA, but they were nominated at BAFTA. And the only one who didn't from the last 8 years was Ruben Östlund for Triangle of Sadness. And I know this is also a kind of a silly little other thing I've noticed, but I did notice that a lot of the big Hollywood films that are snubbed from this category are typically shot digitally. And here, Sinners, Marty, Hamnet, I believe all of them were shot on film, which again, I think gained a certain level of respect from the director branch, a certain level of pedigree. So I'm just gonna go ahead and stick with PTA, Ryan Coogler, Joachim Trier, Chloe Zhao, and Josh Safdie. You know, with that, I have my international director still. I have 4 out of 5 for DGA. So yeah, let's just go with that. Let's move on to Best Adapted Screenplay. Finally, an easier category. Globe's Critics' Choice, BAFTA long list. You got One Battle After Another and Hamnet. And beyond that, I'm really just filling in the rest of the slots with films that got nominated at Critics' Choice and were BAFTA long listed and our Best Picture contenders. So Begonia, Frankenstein, and Train Dreams. I think the only upset I could see is maybe a Wake Up Dead Man based solely on the fact that the previous two were nominated. But it does kind of seem like the Knives Out fatigue is kicking in. I mean, not with me. I saw it a few weeks ago, just as good as when I first saw it. But yeah, I think that's not likely. I think the other ones are much more sure, so let's stick with those. Now we're moving on to the tougher of the screenplay categories, a lot tougher than adapted. We're going to be talking about original screenplay. Okay, so since Globes combines the screenplay categories, if you're nominated at Globes, it's a pretty strong indicator that you're going to make the Oscars. So assuming BAFTA longlist is BAFTA, let's just assume that for now, that would be Sinners, Sentimental Value, and Marty Supreme. So I'm going to go ahead and throw those in there. So Panahi, he missed Critics' Choice. However, he was BAFTA longlisted, which I believe shows that It Was Just an Accident is seen as more of a writer achievement than a director achievement. That's always been kind of my vibe with that film. So the fact that it kind of rolled out that way where Panahi missed director at BAFTA longlist, but he got in screenplay, that kind of adds up for me. He also got the Globes nomination. I believe I only counted, since 2015, 3 original screenplays that got Globe and ended up missing the Oscar. So I do feel like It Was Just an Accident feels reasonable to put in there. So it's really that 5th slot. And without WGA or BAFTA, we're gonna have to kind of go on vibes here a bit. And based on vibes, The Secret Agent was BAFTA shortlisted. However, while I see It Was Just an Accident as a writer achievement, I kind of see Secret Agent as a little bit more of a director achievement. But then we also have Sorry Baby, which is definitely a writer's movie, but it pretty much only has that Critics' Choice nomination. It missed the BAFTA long list, and I think that's a bigger deal than some people may think. I wanted to see how many times that a solo Critics' Choice nomination with no Globes or BAFTA mention on the long list made it into the Oscars. Just looking more recently, since 2020, every single nominee in the screenplay category made the BAFTA shortlist with exception of September 5. And I think what helped September 5 get in was the fact that it was nominated at Globes in the drama category and PGA, and it was in shooting distance of Best Picture. So that leaves you with Also Weapons and Blue Moon. Both appeared on the BAFTA shortlist. Weapons got PGA, and Blue Moon has the Best Comedy nomination at Globe. So I think they both have a good solid case here. But ultimately, here's the thing. Critics' Choice surprisingly does align pretty well with the Academy in this category. In over a decade, at least 4 out of 5 nominees at the Oscars were nominated at Critics' Choice, and It Was Just an Accident is already my non-Critics' Choice pick. So I kind of feel forced to pick from Critics' Choice, which really only gives me Sorry Baby and Weapons to pick from. And just based on, what sometimes the surprises are in the category, they usually just don't come in the form of a Weapons, but they come in a form of an indie art house film, which would be more Sorry Baby. But it's a film that's also not really in the conversation for Best Picture, and it missed the BAFTA long list. So this is a very tough pick. Precursors, I admit, I think they point towards Weapons. However, my just gut is telling me that it's Blue Moon, or I think The Secret Agent surprises here. When you look at previous surprises in this category, it typically leans international. And I know I already have It Was Just an Accident in my lineup, so it feels a little weird to have 2 of them in there, but this is a very unprecedented year. We have a lot of international contenders. And just knowing that, Secret Agent is in my Best Picture lineup, and I don't have Weapons, I don't have Sorry Baby, I don't have Blue Moon in my lineup. So I'm hedging my bets with The Secret Agent. I think that's my best move for me. I do think it's a tricky one though, because in a way, all of them feel right and all of them feel not right. Like Weapons doesn't exactly fit, Blue Moon doesn't exactly fit. Like all my clothes from high school, none of them seem to fit. But I have to just go with the one that's in my Best Picture lineup. So let's go with Secret Agent. All right, let's move over to Best Casting. Now, I'm not sure how to figure this one out really, because we have never had it. But But we do have SAG Ensemble, we have Best Casting long list at BAFTA, and Critics' Choice. We do have those three. All right, so film that received all three of them, we got Sinners, One Battle After Another, Marty Supreme, Hamnet, and Frankenstein. So I could just repeat those same five. I can take my 4 out of 5 and go home, but I do feel like Frankenstein is the vulnerable one here. I do feel like maybe going with an international film would be the wiser choice. And the two I'm looking at is Sentimental Value, because it just seems like the easiest, safest pick. It's going to have a lot of, nominations for acting. But the bold pick, the one I'm really drawn to, is honestly Sarat. If I had to guess, I'm going to say that the best casting is just this blend and this tug of war between unique, diverse casting, finding new discoveries, large ensembles, and an acting nomination somewhere. And the films that check off all those boxes should be the ones I go for, which is why I think Sinners, One Battle After Another, and Marty Supreme are kind of no-brainers. I should follow that trajectory. So Sentimental just feels a little too easy. Sarat hasn't really launched an actor in the awards conversation. Frankenstein is mostly Jacob Elordi. The films that feel closest is really Weapons and Secret Agent to me. But since Weapons wasn't longlisted, and because it missed SAG, I think I'm leaning more towards The Secret Agent here. It's, an interesting, diverse mix of professional and non-professional actors. Mora is getting nominated. I think Tanya Maria feels like a discovery to a degree. But yeah, it also kind of makes sense for me. I have it in my screenplay category. So I'm kind of predicting that Secret Agent has a really good day. But yeah, let me know in the comment section below what you guys would do. This is definitely a category I think I could use some ideas for. But right now I have Secret Agent. All right, moving on to Best Production Design. Films that got Critics' Choice, BAFTA Long List, and ADG. You got Frankenstein, Sinners, Wicked for Good, Hamnet, Marty Supreme. And you have Fantastic Four, First Steps. And I think it's easy to say which one doesn't make the cut. I think the main criteria for this category is simply whether it's a period piece or a fantasy, not modern. And all 5 of these are, and they just, to me, they make a lot of sense. I guess you could see an Avatar still, but I think that film has just been underperforming enough to get bumped out. One Battle After Another, again, there's that bias with it being a modern film. So I'm going to go ahead and stick with these 5. I think they look pretty good. All Best Picture contenders, and then you have Wicked. So yeah, that makes sense to me. All right, Best Cinematography. Films that are very safe. Definitely Sinners, definitely One Battle After Another. Next, I do feel very good about Train Dreams. I think having Best Picture nomination makes a film that has ASC, CCA nominations, and a BAFTA mention. I think that feels very safe. So definitely Train Dreams. The last 2 spots I'm putting in Frankenstein. My only hesitation is really remembering all the critiques on the Netflixy kind of quality to the visuals when the film was released. But Frankie has pretty much everything Sinners in One Battle has, so it just seems mathematically smart to put that one in there. So the last spot. American Society of Cinematographers match up pretty well with the eventual nominees. It has done it 20 out of the last 25 have matched up with the Oscars. I remember Zone of Interest was a possibility of sneaking in this category a few years ago. However, Lucas Zoll has been nominated for black and white films only. ASC snubbed him this year in exchange for Darius Kanji and Marty Supreme. So yeah, I feel pretty good with this 5. Let's move over to Best Editing. Films I feel pretty good about. They got CCA and is on the BAFTA long list. One Battle After Another, Sinners, Marty Supreme. The last 2 slots, I'm looking at F1. I'm looking at Frankenstein and Hamnet. The reason why I have F1 on hold is really that this category is dominated by Best Picture contenders. And what do we really have right now? We have Critics' Choice, right? They awarded Challengers, another non-Best Picture nominee that was also BAFTA long list. So how do we know that F1 is not another Challengers? There's only been 5 non-Best Picture contenders in the last 15 years in the editing category. So that's why I'm pausing on F1. So I really should prioritize films that are, I think, BAFTA nominees, expected director nominees. That's where we got our Brutalist editing nomination and our Tar nomination and our Holdovers editing nomination. So I think I'm going to go ahead and throw in Hamnet. I am a little concerned though, because Hamnet is slower paced. It's not like the flashiest of editing. And it's also not long. Like The Brutalist is long. Killers of the Flower Moon is long. And I think being a long film, there's a certain different challenge with making a long film have a certain flow. So that one I am not entirely sure, but you know, the film just won the Golden Globe. I have to stuff in some big contenders in the category. And then you compare F1 with Frankenstein, and to me, I think that's pretty even. However, Challengers wasn't a PGA nominee, and F1 is. And there is an outside chance that F1 does pop up in picture. It's at least on the table. And there's just, you know, a lot of editing. It's what you associate with editing often with your like Ford versus Ferrari type of film. So I think Frankenstein might be more like your Barbie, where Barbie was a big film, didn't get editing nomination. It's just kind of maybe a film that isn't perceived as maybe elegant enough, and the editing isn't as flashy to boot on top of it. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and just stick with F1 here. All right, let's move over to Best Costume Design. So films that got BAFTA Longlist, Critics' Choice, Costume Designer Guild. You got Frankenstein, Wicked, Hamnet, Sinners. Those all make a lot of sense, so it's really just the last slot that I'm trying to decide between. And the two other option Critics' Choice nominated was Hedda and The Kiss of the Spider Woman. But if you look at the BAFTA Longlist, it's not there. It's gone. It's gone. It's not there. Just looking at the previous nominees, you're going to find that this category heavily favors, once again, period pieces or fantasies. So looking back to 2015, out of the last 75 nominees, only 2 of them was modern, and that was Everything Everywhere All at Once and last year's Conclave. But when looking at One Battle After Another, I think that getting in here would be just purely based on the love of the film. You know, if I was walking down the street wearing the clothing from One Battle After Another, I don't think anybody would bat an eye or think anything strange about it. But if I were wearing the clothes in Conclave, I think I would get some looks. Looking at the last 5 years, the last 25 nominees, BAFTA has matched up in this category with the Oscars 19 out of 25 times. And only 2 of those times, Pinocchio in 2020 and Everything Everywhere All at Once, they were missing on the BAFTA long list. So I want to lean on BAFTA long list here, which again doesn't list Kiss of the Spider Woman or Hedda. It does list One Battle After Another, which could happen, but it would join a very exclusive list of modern movies. The other option listed here is Marty Supreme. You know, has no Costume Designer Guild or Critics' Choice nomination, but neither did A Complete Unknown. And I'm just gonna go ahead and say that it's going to take a very similar path to A Complete Unknown. It's surging right now. It's a late breaker, so I'm sticking in Marty Supreme. All right, moving on Best Hair and Makeup. And I had these 5 picked before the BAFTA long list, and all of them appeared on that long list. We have Frankenstein, Smashing Machine, Sinners, One Battle After Another, and Wicked for Good. The spoiler, I suppose, would be your Marty Supreme or your Kokuo. If I threw Marty in there, I wouldn't really know whether to remove Sinners or remove One Battle After Another. These 5 just feel very safe to me. I have a lot of Best Picture contenders here, and Marty Supreme wouldn't completely shock me, but then I think of The Tin Man, and there's just more makeup in Wicked, so yeah, I just feel very comfortable with these predictions. I don't really think I should really talk my way out of it. I guess I would have to admit that maybe Sinners is the most vulnerable out of these 5. But I mean, what? I mean, Marty Supreme, I know it has very subtle makeup. I just learned that they they put acne on Timothée Chalamet. I didn't notice the makeup, and that's probably a good thing. Will that be something the Academy recognizes? I don't know. To me, it feels a little too stripped down. And so, yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and stick with these 5. All right, moving on to Best Original Score. One Battle After Another, Sinners, Frankenstein, Hamnet hasn't really missed anywhere. It's really that 5th spot that needs to be decided. And I'm looking at F1, I'm looking at Marty Supreme, and possibly Train Dreams. Something to keep in mind, though, Train Dreams and F1 both missed the BAFTA long list, which is kind of interesting. Out of the last 25 nominees, BAFTA didn't match with the Oscars 7 times, and out of those 7, 4 of the times the Oscar nominee didn't even hit the BAFTA long list. So out of the last 5 years, it's really only happened 4 times where a film got in that didn't hit the BAFTA long list, basically. And looking specifically at those 4 times, that had happened where a non-BAFTA long list film ended up being nominated at the Oscars. 3 times those films were nominated by Globes: Fabelmans, Encanto, Parallel Mothers. The film that wasn't was Wicked, which, I think we all know really kind of swooped in with the pure popularity of that film. So I would say F1 fits this since it was nominated by Globes and the Critics' Choice, but that sort of eliminates Train Dreams for me because I don't think it's picked up enough. If Marty missed here, I think we would all consider it a pretty big snub. So I decided to go back and kind of look at the more recent notable snubs in this category. The first big snub you think about is Challengers. It won the Golden Globe, ended up not getting nominated for the Oscars, but then you look closely at it and then you realize, wait, that didn't even make BAFTA long list. And just looking at other examples of snubs, you look at when the Academy said no to Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse for score, but they said yes to American Fiction and Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. The Academy said no to Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, and they went for The Fabelmans. And what that tells me is Best Picture contenders, I think, do have an advantage in this category when facing a non-Best Picture contender like F1. And I know Train Dreams is a Best Picture contender, so it shouldn't be completely disregarded. However, I do think that BAFTA snub with Train Dreams gives Marty the edge, which does appear on the BAFTA long list. So my final predictions for the score is One Battle After Another, Sinners, Frankenstein, Hamnet, and Marty Supreme. All right, moving on to Best Sound. The films that feel safe getting multiple nominations at these Motion Picture Sound Editor Awards and the Critics' Choice is F1, Sinners, One Battle After Another. So put those in there. And then I have 2 slots left and I have 3 options. I have Seurat, Frankenstein, and Avatar, Fire and Ash. And personally, I feel pretty good about Frankenstein getting in here based on the last 4 years when the Oscars have done the shortlist for the sound category. There's been 18 Best Picture nominees and all but 4 made it, which was Barbie, Killers of the Flower Moon, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and West Side Story. But my general rule is just thinking about the for sure Best Picture contenders that lean action-y very often makes the cut. So yeah, I'm going to put Frankenstein in there. So it's really just the last spot, and it's between Seurat and Avatar. And Seurat can obviously be compared to The Zone of Interest for having very unique sound work. But thinking about it more, The Zone of Interest was a Best Picture contender, and it was BAFTA long list, and Seurat wasn't. If Seurat got BAFTA long list, I would have no problem putting it in, but it missing there kind of gives me a little bit of pause. And Avatar did recently blank at the Motion Picture Sound Editor nomination, so you can kind of take your pick on which one you think is more important. But personally, I kind of feel a little bit more safer with Fire and Ash, despite me kind of cheerleading all year for Seurat. And the reason why is we know that Avatar Fire and Ash is the walkaway winner in the visual effects category. And when you have that kind of clear winner in visual effects, say your Dune Part 2, your Avatar Way of Water, your 1917, they typically come with another tech award like sound. And because Seurat isn't your kind of zone of interest, getting that director, getting in the picture, missing BAFTA long list, Zone of Interest did not miss the BAFTA long list. Also, maybe there's just a little bit of doom dicting going on here. Either Seurat will get nominated or I'll get my prediction right. Either way, it's a win-win. Final predictions though, I'm going with F1, Sinners, One Battle After Another, Frankenstein, and Fire and Ash. Okay, Best Visual Effects. We're getting through it. All right, so films that feel like the safest options making Critics' Choice, VES, and BAFTA long lists. You have Avatar, Fire and Ash, F1, and Superman. So the last 2 spots, I have 4 films. I have The Lost Butts, Sinners, Frankenstein, and Wicked. So missing from the BAFTA shortlist is Sinners. And if there was ever a category that I think Sinners could miss, I think it could be this category. However, it did receive both Critics' Choice and it got a VES nomination. The Lost Bus, I feel pretty good about. It got 4 VES nominations. It made the BAFTA shortlist, so I'm definitely going to put that in. That's in my 4th spot. So for the last spot, and oh man, this is tricky. The question is, what do you value more? Do you value more the BAFTA long list, or do you value more the VES? Because Frankenstein didn't get anything at VES. So let's talk about that. So in this decade, the last 5 years, there's been only 3 times a film missed VES and still got in at the Oscars. And that was Love and Monsters, Fall Guy, or Free Guy, not Fall Guy, Free Guy, and All Quiet on the Western Front. But yet on the other side, when you look at BAFTA shortlist, there's only been 3 times a film missed the BAFTA shortlist and made the Oscars. And that was also Love and Monsters, Spider-Man No Way Home, and Godzilla -1. So for me, I'm eliminating Wicked because I think that is a nomination Wicked doesn't need to get. And I really should prioritize the Best Picture contender. So I'm really looking at Sinners and Frankenstein. And I know some would say there's no correlation between Best Picture in this category. However, I don't know if I agree with that. On the Oscar shortlist since 2018, there's been 11 Best Picture nominated films that made the shortlist, and all but 3 made it. And of those 3 films that made the shortlist that didn't make the Oscar nomination in the end, they were Poor Things, Black Panther, and Mank, in a pandemic year. So personally, I'm tempted to take out Superman and just stick in Frankie and Sinners. But I do hear people complaining often about the Frankenstein's visual effects. I thought they were fine, but again, I'm not the expert on visual effects. So I'm going to stick in Sinners in that last spot. It's a Best Picture contender, and it got VES. Frankenstein, maybe similar to Poor Things and Black Panther, they also did not get a VES nomination. In a way, I'm actually more confident for Lost Bus than I am Superman, so I'm going to move Superman 4th and Lost Bus 3rd and Sinners 5th. All right, we only got a few more categories left. Moving on to Best Song, I have K-Pop Demon Hunters, I have Sinners, I have Diane Warren. The last 2 slots, I'm not going to really overthink it. I got Wicked and I got Train Dreams. I know there are some other options out there. I know there's Come See Me in the Good Light or The Last Time I Seen the Sun. I've heard the cases for them. However, what leaves the category at that point? Do I kick out Girl in the Bubble? Do I kick out Train Dreams? I don't really know. I kind of feel like my documentary slot is filled. I don't know if I have room for 2 of them. And Steven Schwartz is kind of tough to reject. And Train Dreams is looking pretty safe in picture. If you go with these 5, you're guaranteed 4 out of 5. But if I fiddle around, I just know I'm going to miss 3. So I'm going to just stick with this 5 because I think it's possible. I think I Seen the Sun is really the real spoiler in this category. But yeah, sticking with K-pop, Sinners, Diane Warren, Train Dreams, and Wicked. All right, Best Documentary. This is a tough one too. I got 2,000 Meters to Andrivka. It somehow feels like the most safe to be nominated because it's important. It's very intense. It's the same filmmaker who won last year with 20 Days in Mariupol. I have My Undesirable Friends. The reason why I feel pretty good about this one is that this won the Gotham. And the last time a film won the Gotham and missed the Oscar was in 2011. So it's on a pretty darn good streak here. I think it's going to be very well respected. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and put that one in there. I got Perfect Neighbor. I do understand people saying that this could miss. I do get it. But I do think also that random nomination at Critics' Choice for editing is something to look at. I think it's also looking like the possible frontrunner at the Spirit Awards, which of late has also led to an Oscar nomination. It's not a film that skipped the festival circuit by any means. So yeah, I know it became a very populist kind of pick on Netflix, kind of became a very sensational kind of crime film on Netflix. But yeah, I don't know. I still feel pretty good about Perfect Neighbor, but I wouldn't be shocked by the miss. That's why I have it at 3. Next, I do have Cover Up. It's Laura Petraz. She's very well respected by this branch. She's a previous winner. This is also a Netflix film. I saw it. I actually liked it quite a lot. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of archival based. It's probably doesn't feel as urgent as their other documentaries, so I wouldn't be shocked by this miss here. I think it's just a very safe option to put in here. And then in my fifth one, I have Apocalypse in the Tropics. This one I haven't seen, but I'm seeing this one in a lot of people's predictions. It's from a previous nominee, and this film seems to be performing on par with that previously nominated documentary. This lineup just kind of feels like very like, yeah, definitely some of these are gonna get snubbed, but a lot of these are kind of like pretty big ones that you can't snub them all. I feel pretty good I'll at least get 3 out of 5 on this one, but we'll see. All right, best animated film. This is one of the easiest categories to call. I'm just gonna go with K-pop, Zootopia, Arco, Little Amelie, or Little Amelie, and Elio. And I really have no reason to doubt it. So I'm just gonna stick with those 5. I got other things to think about, like those shorts categories. So let's move on to best international film. So I'm officially caving on No Other Choice. I'm caving on it. I think that it's gonna be an uphill battle to get that one in at this point. The Academy's international branch just doesn't enjoy good old stylized fun. It doesn't like it for some reason. Park Chan-wook has just been snubbed before. Neon has 5 films in contention. So there's also that, as well as, you know, is Neon gonna get all 5 of them? It's probably not wise to predict that. So I just went ahead and I just removed No Other Choice. I put in the voice of Henry Rajab. It is a small distributor, but you know, a lot of very respected celebrities are attached as producers for that film. It's a very important film. It's a very emotional film. So yeah, I just threw that one in there. Other than that, I did look briefly at the documentary. I looked at the live action shorts and the animated shorts. I'm going to go ahead and put my current predictions on the screen right now for those. Personally, I don't want to come on here and lead you astray. It would take me all day to really kind of sift through all these short options and come up with my 5 in each one. I have to kind of get this video out, but I will go through all these options and I will make my final predictions in the Oscar Expert app before Oscar nomination morning. So follow me on there. I'll give my updates, or maybe I'll just do an update in like a YouTube short or something with those categories. Also, when there's just other people on YouTube who are really covering this in such extensive detail, I'd rather just say, hey, go watch Matt Downs. He does a full breakdown of the shorts category, or I would say listen to the Next Best Picture podcast. You know, they did I think it was like a 7-hour podcast, and they cover the shorts category quite extensively. I know that's going to be downloaded on my phone, and I'm going to listen to that while I'm on the flight over to Sundance. So that's when I'll really kind of go through all these options and make my decisions. So follow me on the Award Expert app. I'll eventually update that and put all the shorts there. But for now, I'm going with this in animated, I'm going with this in live action, and I'm going with this in the documentary shorts. But other than that, those are my Oscar predictions. And I wish there was just more room for me to kind of go out on a few limbs. The only thing that's really nagging me is like, I feel like Sinners is going to take a hit in one of the acting categories between Woomney and Michael B. Jordan. And I really can't sort out who it's gonna be, but I feel like Jesse Plemons. I don't know why, I feel it in my gut that he is getting in, and I'm toying with the idea of taking Michael B. Jordan out and putting Jesse Plemons in. I can't quite decide on that one yet. That's the one that's bugging me. Like, that's my one big swing I might want to take. The other one is, I still feel a little uncomfortable about director, like about Josh Safdie getting in. I think to get a good score, often, you know, it's that 5th slot. You get an option A or an option B, and there's like a few categories this year where you have this or this. And where you get the good score is just consistently choosing that correct option. And as always, I will be deciding between those options until the very last second. So feel free to leave a comment below your predictions, what you're thinking. You know, you guys are my little think tank. You guys help me think through my thoughts. So please, in the comment section below, tell me what things you're predicting that you think I'm missing. The other thing I want to mention too is if you haven't seen the last video I made, I would definitely go check that video out. I'm doing a very fun experiment where I basically collect votes from all of you guys out there to pick the Best Picture nominations. But other than that, stay tuned this week because I'm going to be at Sundance reviewing the Sundance shorts, looking out for the next year's Oscar contenders. And I'm going to be, of course, doing the nomination reactions. I'll be filming that in my Airbnb at Sundance. But yeah, I got a lot of fun stuff coming your way, so feel free to hit the subscribe button. Thanks always for watching, and until next time, everyone, I'll see you at the Oscars.